Hey there, so this tutorial is for anyone working on the MmmCrafts series of ornaments, and this one is for Mrs. Claus in the Twas the Night series. A lot of people have trouble making these ornament heads because they are so small. So I wanted to show you kind of how I go about making them. So this is what a completed one, and I call this one Classic Mrs. Claus in my shop. Whoops. So I'll put her aside. So you're going to want to start with a 20mm bead, and for marking it, I always start using a pencil because then I can erase any construction lines afterwards, and if you make a mistake, you can just delete it, or you can just erase it, which is nice. I also use, I've got the jelly roll number 8, but I pulled out the wrong one because I've actually found that the jelly roll number 10 is a better size, and sometimes it kind of crusts up at the end, but I'll show you how to deal with that. Then I have an acrylic painter marker. It works really well for me. It's to fill in the big areas on the head, and you can just get them off Amazon. And I'm sure there's other options as well. I just find that one works for me. I always have a good eraser with me. You want to make sure that your eraser is not going to leave extra smudges and things afterwards. That's actually going to erase cleanly. So I like a white one for that. And then I've got the black jelly roll number 6 that I'll use for the eyes. And let's see, oops. And then a jelly roll number, this one's an 8 for the mouth. I'm just gonna put that there. He keeps rolling off. Okay, so to get started on all of these bead projects, I always start with making my center construction line. It's just like that. Actually, and before you do that, have a look at the bead and make sure it's in fairly good shape, because it sucks if you put in the effort, then afterwards you realize that there's a big crack at the back of the head or something. It happens to me all the time. So the first thing is to do her eyes, which are pretty simple. It's like a half circle. So I'm just gonna draw that in. There you go. Try to make them as similar as you can to each other. Again, if you have problems, you can erase. And I'll just give you an idea. For anyone that's really specific, I've got about a 3mm gap in there between the eyes. And then I find my center and I draw another line straight down like that, so that I know where to place the mouth. Because if I don't have this line, I'll totally end up putting it off to the side, because I hold the bead this direction, so I can't really see if I hold it that way. So this one, I'm just gonna give her a little small mouth. I find smaller features look better on these heads. If they're too big, they start to look a little garish. So that's the basic look. And then for her hair on this one, you'll see she's kind of got like an off-centered part in her hair. And you can also see that I ended a few millimeters up from my original eye line. And so that's where that line comes in important as well. So if I want to kind of go from the center of this eye and go up a fair way, so we'll say we'll start it up there. And then over at this side, so I still have my construction line from the eyes, I'm going to draw a dot to the outside edge of the eye, and I'm going to go up about there. And so then if we measure that, the distance, it's about 3 to 4 millimeters in there. So now all I'm going to do is connect these two dots with a big swoop. All right, and just like a parted hair, it's going to go like that. Okay, and there's your first line. So now I'm going to make a dot over here, again to the outside of this eyelid, and up about the same distance. So I am just going to eyeball this, but if you want to, you can actually measure. And this one, I'm just going to do a small kind of swoop to connect those, like that. All right, and then the next one will be it's just below this line. I'm going to draw another little circle in line with this one up here. And I'm just going to do this. Just do a little bump out like that. And on the other side as well. Okay. And look at how far you are. Like, it looks great. Now for this last swoop, it's basically, I mean, I just kind of freehand this, but let's see if I can come up with some rules for you. So I'm just going to kind of go around to the back. Okay. And then to mimic that on this other side, I turn it, and I apologize, I'm left-handed, so everything's backwards for most of you, but I'm going to try to mirror that look on this side. And you can probably take a ruler if you want to get really precise and see, but you will get to a point where you can eyeball these pretty well. And I'm just going to kind of scooch it around. Okay. And then that's looking pretty good. So then the last trick is at the back to connect these two with a little swoop. All right, so that's the classic head. So then I always start with the eyes, and I'll take a if I can find, it's a piece of paper, just to start the ink going on these, because the eyes, I don't want to mess them up. And just outline. At this point, when I do that part, I let this bead normally dry for a whole day, because then I can really go in there and erase the construction lines, and sometimes it'll make the marker fade a little bit, but you can always, by then you've got something to follow, and you can always touch it up a little bit if you want. But because this is a tutorial, I'm just gonna go ahead and risk damaging that. Because it's the white, I use a bit of an eraser. And I'm just going to use the tip of this one because it's a brand new one, so I know it's not going to mess anything up. And I'm actually going to erase what I did, because it may not get covered up by the white gel marker, and I don't want to risk that it's going to show through. So I just go around gently, because I still want to be able to see the line in order to follow it with the marker, but it doesn't have to be that heavy. Okay, and I'm just going to come in here. Again, normally you don't have to be that careful around the eyes because you're going to let this dry overnight. But I do have to be careful because I don't want to mess this up. Okay. There we go. The nice thing about these Securas is I find, actually any of these, the white markers, they seem to dry really fast, so you can move on. The one problem with this one is you'll see it gunks up at the tip, and sometimes the ink won't come out. So I'll actually just roll it around on my thumb a little bit, and I'll test it on some paper to get it going. And then I'm just gonna follow my lines very carefully. If you run into problems, fine sandpaper can really lift this marker up really well because it is white. And so I'm just gonna go in this, like my other heads, what I do is I try to fill in close to that line, so that's already done. When I go in with my thicker fill marker, then I don't have to worry about bleeding over the edges. See that? It's actually doing pretty well. It hasn't gunked up on me yet. So I find if I've used the number 8, and I just find it doesn't have quite enough ink coming out the ball tip, which is why I came across the 10 and I thought, you know, I bet you that'll work a lot better for this. So that's what I'm using. And you notice how I do maneuver my hands around to avoid touching any kind of wet areas. So like I gotta rotate, so I'm just gonna grab it like that, like this, rotate it around. Okay, and then I'm gonna fill in this area. And then the last little bit is back here. And then we've got our edge all done. Okay, so then the next step, I'll just put her down there for a moment, is I take out my thicker paint filled marker. And again, I'm going to test it. It's fully loaded, like I can see a ton coming out, so that's great. And now I'm just going to go in and fill in this whole area. Because I make these and sell them, I fill in the entire back of her head. Even though it's not going to be seen, I do it because I think it makes a better product that I'm selling. But if you're making these, you probably just only need to go that far, because keep in mind her hood is going to hide this whole back area. Okay, and I'm just gonna let her sit for a moment and let that dry for like a minute before I can actually touch it again. And yep, I can touch it, so that was pretty quick. It might still be a little wet, but it's good enough for what I need to show you. All right, so I'm gonna fill in this top part. Okay, and she's looking great. So the next step is I'm gonna have to erase around her mouth area, and I have a red gel pen there, and I'm just gonna blow on her to make that go a little quicker. And so again, around the mouth, I'm going to erase it, but just leave enough so I can see my lines, and I'm just going to erase this construction line. So I can still see sort of the outline of her mouth, which is, oops, it's enough for me to figure out where I need to go with this. So again, I'm going to go to the side. And there we go. Okay. I will finish this off. Again, I'm going to let it dry. These lines need to be erased off. And then it's always good with these to finish with a, I use a matte fixative spray, and I'll have to show it to you in another video, or I'll link you to what I use below. I just get it at Michael's. But yeah, so that's the Mrs. Claus classic head and how I do them for the MmmCrafts Twas the Night. I think it's called Twas the Night Before Christmas, or just Twas the Night Mrs. Claus head. And next up, I'm gonna do the I think I'll do the surprised Mrs. Claus for you. Okay, have a great day, and if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and the like. Thank you so much.